So I wanted to ask you what type of services, either one-on-one or group sessions, that you all offer the community, and also that other organizations offer that you may know of, so that people can know to take advantage of those.
We offer the one-on-one housing counseling services for renters or homeowners, and free of charge. People can come in, help set up a budget, or whatever their goals are. All of our clients have to have an action plan on whatever they're trying to get at. If it's paying off bills, or they want to buy a house and things like that. And so they stay with us one-on-one. The meetings could be monthly, they could be every couple of months. It's up to them, whatever their track is they're trying to get to. So we offer that service to come in. We pull a credit report, a tri-merge credit report, teach them how to read it so they can manage, look at the score, explain to them about credit scores and things like that. So there could be a goal to increase their credit score to get them at the home buying level, the mortgage ready. So that would be part of our home ownership and some of our rental counseling as well.
So that's one-on-one, and then also group education?
We do group education as well, and we offer classes. We're just publishing our 2012 schedule right now. Matter of fact, I sent it out today. And we do have an upcoming class about getting out of debt, and that's January the 11th at 6 o'clock at Piedmont Housing. So it's open to anyone to come in. You just need to register.
Great. Free of charge?
Free of charge. Just need to register.
Free of charge of MACA as well. We have a wonderful woman named Lindell who works with both groups and individuals. Of course, not during tax time. At tax time, she does free tax preparation. But outside of that, she does the classes, and she also goes out into the community to teach some of them. And I'm sure that's posted on our MACA's website, or you can call MACA's offices and get the listing for when those classes are being offered. We really try to be thoughtful about doing some daytime classes and some nighttime classes. We know a lot of folks work in the retail or service industry, and so their schedules aren't sort of a 9-to-5 schedule. So we try to be aware of that and make sure that we can offer classes that everybody can attend.
Great.
Habitat doesn't do classes ourselves, but we do utilize the PHA classes. We also work with the Albemarle County Housing Department, Paul Harper there. But every family that goes through the Habitat program is required to go through a homebuyer's education class. So they're doing all the spending plans and saving money and all of that. For folks who've applied with us that their credit is an issue or we couldn't approve them for another reason, we refer them again to PHA or MACA. Albemarle County State Farm, I understand, also has a program that's available for folks, and they do one-on-one or group depending on what's needed. I'd like to mention that you should never have to pay for credit counseling.
Correct.
Any organization that wants you to pay for it, run. Go to PHA or MACA, or find somebody else. Nobody should be asking you to pay for the credit counseling.
Because typically, as a nonprofit, we seek funds, grant funding to offset the cost of running those credit reports. So there's no reason to do that. And they don't need to pay for debt management. Why pay somebody, if you're not going to get down to the basics of what the real problem is?
And
because that doesn't solve the problem whatsoever.
Yes. So all these classes they get into reading your credit report, understanding it, learning how to contact the creditors if you think something isn't yours. So, all of these classes, they take you through all of those steps, and that's all anybody should need as far as dealing with the credit.
So the word we want to spread is that there are very welcoming, very knowledgeable people who want to help out, and so there's no reason people can't learn some more about managing their budget and improving their financial situation, making it stronger.
Can I just, Marnie mentioned the tax returns, the free tax returns service. That's another thing that we really try to stress with everybody that we come into contact with. You go to this free clinic, the folks are really well trained, they know what they're doing, they file for you electronically, you'll have your refund check in like 7 to 10 days. So we really, really discourage people from going to the Statue of Liberty places.
There is no reason to pay for tax preparation.
If you make under $50,000, then you should seek out the sites.
Absolutely.
UVA Credit Union, Friendship Court Neighborhood Network Center has one. MACA has a site.
PVCC, I think,
PVCC
offers
has
it.
them, even if you're not under the 50,000. But it's Earned Income Tax Credit Program, and it actually kicks off January the 18th.
And we'll put a link on so people can find out
There'll
the
be a link
full
plus the
information
show.
about program
We're
sites.
discussing it on our show that's starting on Thursday night, so they can get information on the Earned Income Tax Credit Program and the site.
So I wanted to wrap up this section about household budget by asking each of you to share one of your money-saving tips or how to stick to a budget tips.
Well, I'll start with a money-saving tip. There's a wonderful program called Loads of Love, where you can do your laundry for free. They have 5 washers and dryers, and they provide all of the soap. So for folks that are spending money going to a laundromat, or even if you have your own washer and dryer, but you're on a very, very tight budget, this is a way that you can free up a little bit of your income to go towards something else. You can contact them through Love Inc. at 977-7777. But it's a wonderful, wonderful resource in the community that really does free up a little bit of money.
Wonderful, right? For me, my one tip would basically be you have to set that budget. You have to understand what's coming in and what goes out. If not, you don't have control of your finances. And the big tip would be if you pay a bill late at any time during the month, you need to set up and look at a budget if a bill is paid late. Any bill, doesn't matter what it is. There's your first red flag. If you pay it late.
I think my tip would be looking at needs versus wants. And that's especially good for the teenagers and the kids. You know, do you need this or do you just want it?
Right.
And if we're, until there's a savings account that'll cover 2 months of your expenses if something happens, you shouldn't be buying the wants. You should really be sticking to the needs.
Yeah.
Good point. And I would just add to encourage people to make use of community resources. There's a lot of information out there. A good place if people are just wondering where can I start or where can I help people to go to would be to start with United Way's Family Resources Guide just to get an idea of what resources are out there for people and then make
Call
use
us.
of everyone else. Great. Now we're going to transition to emergency and transitional housing. We want to make sure that families out there know what kind of support system exists for housing. So where can a family go if they are in need of emergency housing in the Charlottesville area?
Well, first I want to say that we are in lack of resources significantly in this area. We do not have enough transitional housing or emergency housing for families. But that being said, there is a shelter at the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army also has a transitional housing program. They have 9 units of transitional housing. MACA has a transitional housing program. Pacham runs during the cold winter months, but they are typically for individuals and not families. They can sometimes, depending on their funding, put a family up for a night in a hotel, but it's not a real solution. So unless a family is sort of in between, they know they have, a family member that they can stay with, but they won't be able to until such, a month from now, or Pacham is not always the best place to go for families, although they will try and do everything that they can and link them to other resources. But in terms of a sort of a more a longer solution, Pacham, it's difficult for them because of the way that they're set up. There are also, if you have school-age children, Albemarle County has a Families in Crisis program that's really helpful. But we are seeing more and more folks who are getting evicted. There's a serious lack of affordable housing in Charlottesville, workforce housing. I like to call it real affordable housing. There are some places that have affordable housing, but they're often even out of sight for a lot of people who are working minimum wage jobs and who have children. It's difficult, and There's so many folks on the waiting list for the different housing projects and for public housing.
And
that-
Section 8,
and
they're
Section
all
8.
closed in our area.
Right. So it's a challenge trying to find resources for families. The last time we had an opening at Hope House, we had 38 eligible families, and we had to choose one. So it's
You might want to explain what transitional housing is in case if people don't understand what that means.
Yeah, maybe briefly the difference between emergency versus.
sure. Emergency shelters typically. In this area, you have about a 6-month stay, and you don't have to be working. Now, in different communities, it looks a little bit different, but in our community, transitional housing, you do have to have income. And it's a temporary place to stay. Both programs, you can stay for up to 2 years. So it is more permanent than going to a shelter. But in both programs, as we were talking about financing, our goal when you think about a house and you think about the foundation is to get them financially stable first and foremost. And so I know at MACA's program, they only pay 15% of their net income. Salvation Army is a little bit more than that. They use the 30% of the area mean income is their guide to what they charge for program service fee. But in both cases, it's significantly less than you would be paying for rent, even at a subsidized level. So it enables people to have more income to be able to pay off their debt. And we give pretty intense case management services. So they meet with us all the time. We're constantly going over their goals. And there's usually, in most places, there are some other requirements. Like for instance, at MACA's program, they're required to take and complete a parenting class. If you're coming out of homelessness, oftentimes your life gets imbalanced in a lot of ways, and you overcompensate in a lot of ways. So things that we think about as typical, like routine, like bedtimes, those kinds of things get out of whack. And so we look at sort of every layer of the person and try to help them with whatever they need help with. So it's a very individualized, intense program to help get people stabilized and reach self-sufficiency so that when they leave the program, they've learned banking skills, they've learned finance skills, they've learned parenting skills, they've learned cooking on a budget, they've learned how to eat healthy with your family, they've learned all of these things that make them sort of a happy, healthy family and a participating member in the community. So that's sort of transitional housing in a gist. I think it's amazing personally to be a part of that.
Wonderful. How many units do you
We have 4 units.
You have 4 units.
But then we also do a year of follow-up case management services. So we don't say, sorry, you're done with the program, adios.
Bye.
We want to make sure to give them the support that they need to sustainable and maintain the skills that they've learned. So it's not nearly as intense. They don't see me every day. But I do check in with them and make sure that they're doing okay. Are they struggling? Where are they struggling? Can I give you some ideas? Or, it's part of, I think one of the biggest things we do is believe in our clients. Having somebody that believes in you and says, yes, you can pay off your debt, you can go to college, you can get your GED, all these things are possible. But if nobody ever told you could do those things, you don't know that you can. And so I think the biggest thing that we do is we give people hope and we give them self-confidence.
It's beautiful.
Everybody needs somebody, right?
That's
We're
right.
partnering with Salvation Army, or Piedmont Housing Alliance is partnering with Salvation Army and their transitional housing to do classes with them, very similar to what Marnie's talking about, but meeting, with a small group and then hopefully taking them one-on-one, or they would be referred to some other resources in the community. So we're excited about that coming up.
Yeah, and
then the
our program partners also with PHA and getting their
credit
Credit
review,
report,
and setting
thank
up
you.
their beginning of their action plan, and then they go back basically to Marnie, and then it's that plus their goals with Marnie that they're trying to do. So, and people that are getting ready to exit, come out of transitional housing, or if they've been incarcerated or this, that, and other. These classes that both of our programs offer in other agencies like the credit union, people need to utilize them more because there's great opportunity. It's at a basic level. And people are there, the instructors or the housing counselors or whoever it is are there to help people. And just like you said, setting a goal. It's a challenge for some people to say, I need to pay this bill off. You know, it might be the old cable bill that's on the credit report that's keeping their score down, that they can't apply to get decent housing if the landlord's requiring a credit report and a minimum score or something like that. So I think the opportunity is there, but it's underutilized. And again, it's free. It's not going to cost them anything but an hour or hour and a half of time to maybe get one tip that they can carry with them that will keep them from getting evicted again or whatever the situation is. Or at least understanding what makes up that credit score. You know, it's really, and you don't have to pay people to find that out. It's about paying your bills on time and not maxing out your credit.
So oftentimes people are entering homelessness because of evictions.
Yes.
And you can't even get on the public housing waiting list if you owe money to a landlord. And if you're staying in a hotel, for example, or you've temporarily lost your job and that's the reason that the eviction happened, it's so difficult to feel like you can get ahead. And so transitional housing really provides that opportunity for folks to just kind of breathe and not feel so overwhelmed.
So much pressure.
And be able to do those things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
But the demand is so great. The demand is so great because we also, not just eviction as in rental, we also got to think about the people that have been foreclosed on. And it might not have been a situation where they didn't manage their finances correctly. It might have been the situation that people lost their jobs or someone got sick.
Or the other
and it
thing we're
caused a
seeing quite a
disruption.
bit now is that folks who were renting, the people who own the homes got foreclosed,
foreclosed on.
And so these
Yes.
folks who had been able to manage and
Correct.
sustain now never planned on having first month's rent, utility deposits,
Correct.
all those kinds of things. And so it's to no fault of their own, but now they're stuck.
Right. And those are the things people have to think of when they're making a transition, either out of transitional housing or from another housing, that upfront money.
And there
Most
are
landlords aren't telling their tenants when they're in a financial situation.
right.
We've had people that come through for the housing counseling, and their tenants or the homeowner, and there sits the tenant, and they get a piece of paper is stapled to their door, or it's the realtor coming up and saying, "You've got 30 days, you got to move out." What? What do you mean? What happened? You know, and we actually had one of our tenants on our Section 8 mainstream program that was living in a house that was foreclosed on. She had no clue. She had no clue what was going on. And the thing of it is, the owner's mail was coming to the house and she didn't open it. It didn't have her name on it. It was for the landlord. She kept saying, you got mail here. And that was the foreclosure notices and things like that. But they knew. And then we have someone that has to find housing,
Right.
like right now. And here it's a family that had to get up, move, that had been there for 7-8 years. That's difficult. It's a challenge in the community and in our whole area.
There are resources to help with that. MACA has a
of them.
program that will help with first month's rent. Of course, you have to qualify, and there's certain qualifiers for that. But if folks are finding themselves in that position, they should call MACA. And if we can't help, we can usually, refer to places and try to find resources to help the individuals. And that's one thing we try to do with all of our folks that don't get accepted into Hope House, is if they would like me to continue working with them on budgeting, on
Sure.
whatever that they feel like they need help with, that's a service that we can now offer. So
That's wonderful. So even if they're not one of those 4 families, MACA will offer
I'm working,
some of those
and
services.
there are several people who have taken me up on that and been able to work with them on some things. And so MACA's very, very pleased that we can offer that service.
Thank you. Your phone might be ringing off the...
That's good.
That's great. That's great. And you've done an excellent job in describing Hope House and the services it provides to the
Yeah,
communities.